The big mansion was quiet. Heavy rain fell outside. Inside, the air was cold. Even though the fire was burning, the family had gathered. Their father, Mr. Jonathan Hill, a rich old man, had died just yesterday. Now his 5 children sat in the living room, waiting to hear the will. Among them was David, the adopted black brother. He sat at the corner, silent. He wore simple clothes, unlike the others who wore expensive suits and dresses. They never treated David like a real brother. He knew that, but he still came to say goodbye to the man who gave him a home. David was adopted when he was only 7. His real parents died in a fire. Mr. Hill had saved him from the streets. David loved him like a real father. But growing up in the Hill family was not easy. The other children never accepted him. They called him names behind his back. They laughed. When he made mistakes, David never complained. He stayed kind. He believed love would win in the end. The family lawyer, Mr. Graham, stood with a serious face. He opened the will and began to read. To my son, Charles, I leave the beach house. To my daughter, Clara, I leave my company shares. To Emily, the lake cabin. To Tom and Sarah, the rest of my estate. One by one, each child smiled. They had waited for this day. Then came a pause. David looked up. The lawyer continued, slowly. To David, I leave nothing. The room went silent. David blinked. He thought he heard wrong. But no, that was it. Nothing. Not even a thank you. Clara gave a small laugh. Guess that's fair. Tom smirked. He wasn't even real family. David stood up slowly. His heart was heavy, but he didn't show it. He gave a short nod to Mr. Graham and walked out of the room. Wait, David, Emily said softly. But he didn't stop. He walked outside. The rain hit his face, but he didn't care. His eyes were wide open, but his mind was full of questions. Why did he leave me out? He remembered the times he helped Mr. Hill take his medicine, or the nights he stayed beside him when the others were too busy. He remembered the stories they shared in the garden, the quiet smiles, the warm hand on his shoulder. Was that all fake? David didn't cry, but his chest felt tight, like something was breaking inside. He walked to the back of the mansion. The garden was wet. The flowers were dying. He saw the small bench where he used to sit with Mr. Hill. He sat there now, alone, cold, forgotten. He looked up at the sky. Why, Dad? He whispered. Why did you leave me like this? Behind him, the lights in the mansion were bright. The others were laughing, drinking wine, planning what to do with the money and houses. Inside, David had always felt like a shadow. Now, he knew. They had never seen him as part of them. He pulled out a small photo from his pocket. It was old, faded. A picture of Mr. Hill, holding him on his first day in the mansion. They were both smiling. David touched the photo gently, then stood up. I won't cry, he said. I won't beg, but I will find out the truth. He walked back into the house, not through the front door, but through the side hallway. He remembered something. Something Mr. Hill once told him. If anything ever happens to me, go to the library. You'll find what you need. At the time, he thought it was just about books. But now, those words echoed in his mind. He entered the quiet, dusty library. It smelled like old paper and wood. He looked around. So many books, paintings, and shelves. Then he saw it. A painting slightly tilted on the wall. He walked closer. Behind the painting, a small hidden box was stuck into the wall. It had one word on it, David. His heart jumped. Before he could take it out, the door opened. What are you doing here? Tom shouted. David froze. I said, What are you doing? Clara stepped in too. David quickly pulled the box and hid it under his coat. Nothing, he said quietly. Just saying goodbye. You don't belong here, Tom snapped. David didn't answer. He walked past them, calm and silent, but inside, his mind was racing. What was inside the box? Why did Mr. Hill leave it only for him? David didn't have the answers yet, but he had something more important, a reason to stay. David walked away from the mansion slowly, his coat wet from the rain. In his hands, hidden under the cloth, was the small wooden box with his name carved on it. David! His heart was beating fast. What could be inside? He found a quiet place behind an old tree near the edge of the property. He sat down and opened the box with shaking hands. Inside, he found 3 things: a letter in his father's handwriting, a small old map, a silver key. He unfolded the letter first. It was written in simple words, but full of feeling. Dear David, if you are reading this, then I am gone. I'm sorry for what just happened, but you must trust me. Everything is not what it seems. You are always in my heart. Go to the place where we first planted the white roses. Use the key. You'll find the truth there. Love, Dad. David stared at the letter. He remembered the white rose garden. It was in the basement greenhouse, a place no one visited anymore. He took a deep breath, stood up, and looked back at the mansion. He had to go back in. David waited until late night. The lights inside were dim now. Most of the family had gone to sleep or were busy in their rooms. David crept through the garden, keeping low in the shadows. He knew the mansion better than anyone. He had helped the gardener, the cook, even the handyman when others didn't. He entered through the old back door. It creaked softly, but no one heard. He walked quietly through the kitchen, down the servants' stairs, and into the basement. The air there was cold and damp. Dust filled the corners. But David walked like he knew exactly where to go. He reached the door to the basement greenhouse. It had been locked for years. He pulled out the silver key and slowly turned it. Click, the door opened. Inside the room was quiet, full of cobwebs. Old rose pots stood on the ground, dry and broken. But in the corner, something looked different. David walked over. Beneath an old table was a loose wooden floorboard. He pulled it up and found a small metal box inside. He opened it. Inside was a file of papers marked private and another letter. This time, the letter was shorter. If you are here, David, then you are ready to know. The will they heard is not the full will. A secret clause was added for you. Take these papers to my lawyer, Mr. Howard Blackstone. He will explain everything. David's eyes widened. A second will. A secret clause. Why had his father done this? He looked through the papers. Legal documents. A sealed envelope. And notes written in Mr. Hill's handwriting. David held the file close to his chest. His heart was heavy, but also full of new strength. He whispered, "You didn't forget me." Suddenly, the basement door slammed open. "David!" It was Tom, holding a flashlight. Behind him were Clara and Charles, looking angry and confused. "What are you doing down here?" Tom shouted. Clara stepped forward. "Are you stealing something?" David quickly closed the metal box and stood up. "No," he said calmly. "I'm just looking for memories." Charles grabbed the box from him. "What's in here?" David didn't fight. He just stared at them with sad eyes. Tom opened the box and pulled out the papers. "This is legal stuff." Clara frowned. "It's probably nothing. Throw it out." But Charles looked worried. He handed the box back to David. "Just leave, David," he said. "This isn't your home anymore." David looked at the 3 of them. He wanted to scream, to tell them the truth. But he didn't. He just said, "You're right, but soon, that will change." He walked out of the basement, holding the box tightly. The siblings stood there, confused and angry. Outside, the rain had stopped. The clouds were moving away, and the moon was out. David stood near the garden and looked up at the sky. His hands were cold. But inside, a small fire had started. He now had hope and a reason to fight. The next morning, David stood outside an old office building in the city. The sign above the door read, Howard Blackstone, Attorney at Law. This was the lawyer mentioned in his father's letter. David had never met him before. His hand shook slightly as he held the box of papers close to his chest. He took a deep breath and walked inside. The office was quiet. A kind-looking older man in a dark suit looked up from his desk. "You must be David Hill," the man said with a small smile. "I've been waiting for you." David blinked. "You knew I would come?" Mr. Blackstone nodded. "Your father gave me instructions. He said you would find the truth, even if others tried to hide it." David sat down and slowly placed the box on the desk. "I found this in the basement," he said. "There's a letter and papers. My name was on the box." Mr. Blackstone opened the file carefully. He checked the documents, reading quickly but seriously. Then he nodded. "It's all here. This is the true final version of the will, the one your father signed with me. There's a hidden clause in it, meant just for you." David leaned forward. "What does it say?" The lawyer took out the last page, cleared his throat, and read aloud. "In addition to the will shared with the family, I declare this hidden clause. I leave 60% of my company shares and full ownership of the main mansion to my adopted son, David Hill. He alone cared for me when others did not. He is my true son." David's heart nearly stopped. "What?" Mr. Blackstone looked at him kindly. "Yes, David, you are the true heir. Your father didn't forget you. He trusted only you to find the truth." David sat in silence. The pain in his chest turned into something else. Strength, but along with that strength came fear. He whispered, "The others, they'll be angry." Mr. Blackstone nodded. "They will fight. They may even try to hide this. But this is legal. I will take it to court if needed." David shook his head slowly. "I don't want to hurt anyone. I just wanted to know he loved me." The room was silent. Everyone in the family stared at Mr. Blackstone as he held the last page of the real will. Only the sound of the clock ticking on the wall could be heard. David sat with calm eyes, but inside, his heart was beating fast. Tom crossed his arms. Clara looked annoyed. Charles leaned forward, confused. Mr. Blackstone began reading the hidden clause aloud. "In addition to the public will, I, Jonathan Hill, declare this final clause. I leave 60% of my company shares and full ownership of the mansion to my adopted son, David Hill. This is my final decision. He is my true son, in love and loyalty." As soon as the lawyer finished, Tom stood up angrily. "What is this?" he shouted. "This can't be real." Mr. Blackstone looked at him calmly. "It is legal, signed and witnessed. I was there when your father wrote it." Clara stood too. "But he already gave us everything. Why would he change that for David?" "Because David was the only one who truly cared," the lawyer said. "When Mr. Hill was sick, who sat with him? Who brought him food? Who made sure his medicine was taken?" David stayed quiet. He didn't want to argue. He didn't want revenge. He just wanted them to know the truth. Sarah, the youngest sister, looked shocked. "Did Dad really love David that much?" Emily nodded slowly. I think he did. I remember he always smiled when David was around." Charles, still sitting, asked the lawyer, "So what does this mean? Are we losing everything?" "No," Mr. Blackstone replied. "You still receive your parts from the original will. But the mansion and most of the company will now belong to David. Tom laughed bitterly. He's not even blood. Mr. Blackstone's voice turned firm. A family is not just blood. It's loyalty. It's love. After the meeting, the family stepped outside. Tom turned to David with angry eyes. You planned this, didn't you? David shook his head. No, I found the truth. That's all. Clara pointed a finger at him. You think you deserve all this? You were adopted. You don't belong here. David looked at her calmly. Maybe I wasn't born here, but I earned my place. You tricked him, Charles muttered. No, David said softly. He saw who really loved him. That's why he trusted me. Sarah, who had been quiet, looked at David with watery eyes. Sorry, David, she whispered. I didn't know. David nodded. It's okay. It's not too late to see the truth. That night, back at the mansion, a storm rolled in. Rain fell hard, and thunder shook the windows. Tom and Clara were in the study, talking in whispers. We can't let this happen, Tom said. We need to stop it. Clara looked nervous. What can we do? It's legal now. Tom slammed his fist on the table. Then we make it look like David lied. We say he forged the papers. You want to take him to court? Yes, Tom growled. If we can't beat him with truth, we use fear. Meanwhile, David stood in his small room, packing a few things. He didn't want to stay in the mansion yet. Not until the dust had settled. There was a knock at the door. It was Emily. She stepped inside quietly and handed him a folded note. This is from Dad, she whispered. I found it hidden in his coat last year. I didn't know what it meant back then, but I think you should see it now. David opened the note. If anything happens, trust David. He's the only one who stayed when everyone else walked away. Tears came to David's eyes. He looked at Emily. Thank you. I think he really did love you, David, she said. More than we knew. David gave her a small smile. I loved him too. The next morning, a letter came to the mansion. Tom read it and grinned. It's from our lawyer. We're going to challenge the will in court. Clara looked at him with worry. You really want to do this? He's not taking our home. Tom growled. I'll destroy him if I have to. But David was ready. He had the original file, the sealed envelope, the handwritten letters, and now, Emily's note. The truth was on his side. But the fight had just begun, and the court would soon hear the story of the adopted son who was left out and came back with the truth. The courtroom was full. Reporters sat in the back rows. Strangers whispered quietly. The Hill family sat on one side, their faces cold and stiff. David sat on the other side, holding a folder close to his chest. Tom's lawyer stood first. This will is false, the man said loudly. The clause was added later, not by Mr. Hill, but by someone else, most likely. David Hill. Gasps filled the room. Tom smiled proudly. Clara leaned back, arms crossed. Charles kept a straight face, but even he looked unsure. David stood up slowly. His hand shook, but his voice stayed steady. That's not true. I didn't write anything. This clause was given to me by Mr. Blackstone, my father's lawyer. It's real. The judge nodded. Let's hear from Mr. Blackstone. The old lawyer walked up, calm and confident. I was Mr. Hill's private legal advisor. He signed the hidden clause in front of me and 2 witnesses. I kept it in a sealed envelope in my office, exactly as he asked. This paper, he held it high, has his signature and mine. The judge leaned forward. Can this be tested? Yes, Your Honor, Mr. Blackstone said. We already ran tests on the ink and paper. It matches the original will. It's real. A long silence followed. The judge looked at him. Tom's lawyer. Do you still claim it's fake? Tom's lawyer looked nervous. We request more time to investigate. David stepped forward again. Why is it so hard for them to believe my father loved me? Just because I was adopted, Clara rolled her eyes. Because you were never part of us. David looked at the judge. They left me out on purpose. Even when Dad was dying, they pushed me away. But I never stopped caring for him. Emily, sitting behind David, stood up. I want to speak. Everyone turned to her in surprise. The judge allowed it. She walked to the front and held up a small note. This is my father's handwriting. He wrote this before he passed. It says, if anything happens, trust David. He's the only one who stayed. The courtroom went silent again. Tom jumped up. She's lying. She just wants a part of what David is getting. The judge slammed the gavel. Order in the court. During the break, David sat outside on a bench. Rain started to fall lightly. He looked up at the sky and closed his eyes. Mr. Blackstone joined him. You've done well, the old man said. Your father would be proud. I don't want to win just for money, David said. I just want to prove I wasn't nothing to him. The lawyer nodded. You already have. They tried to erase you, but now the world knows the truth. Back. Inside, the final decision was near. The judge looked at both sides. I've reviewed the documents, the signatures, and the witness statements. The hidden clause in the will is legal and valid. David closed his eyes. Tom stood up in shock. No, this can't be. The judge continued. Jonathan Hill left 60% of his company and the mansion to David Hill. The rest of the will stays unchanged. This case is closed. The gavel hit the desk. It was done. After the court, reporters gathered around David. Flashing cameras lit his face. David, how do you feel? Did you know all along? Will you forgive your family? David paused. Then he said slowly, I didn't want revenge. I just wanted the truth. I wanted to know I was loved. He turned and walked away, quietly, ignoring the noise. Behind him, the family stood frozen. Clara whispered to Tom, We lost everything. Tom said nothing. He just stared at David walking away, the brother they had ignored, now standing tall. That night, David returned to the mansion. He walked through the big front doors alone. The house was quiet, almost too quiet, but for the first time, he didn't feel small. He belonged. He walked to the study and placed his father's picture on the desk. I'm home, Dad, he whispered. The news spread fast. Adopted son wins will battle. Jonathan. Hill's hidden clause changes everything. David's name was everywhere. Some people praised him. Others doubted him. But the truth had been spoken, and he had won. Still, David didn't feel like a winner. He walked through the mansion, passing rooms full of memories. He remembered how he used to clean the floor, cook dinner, or wait for the family to come home, only to be ignored. Now, the house belonged to him, but it felt empty. A few days later, he stood in the company office. Workers looked at him with surprise. Is he really the owner now? One whispered. He was adopted. Another said, but Mr. Hill trusted him. Someone replied. David stepped up to the front. I know many of you are confused. He said clearly. You expected Tom or Charles to take over, but I'm not here to replace anyone. I'm here to protect what my father built. He looked around the room. I won't fire anyone. I won't change things fast. But I will work hard, just like I always did, because this company is part of my father, and now part of me. The room was silent. Then slowly, people began to clap. That night, David sat by the fireplace alone. The flame burned softly. His thoughts drifted to the past. He remembered when Tom broke his toy and laughed. He remembered how Clara never shared food with him. He remembered standing outside in the cold while they had parties inside. He closed his eyes. "I forgave you all," he whispered, "but I never forgot." Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. It was Sarah, the youngest sister. She stood in the rain, holding a small box. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. David nodded. They sat in the warm room. Sarah placed the box in front of him. "These are old things Dad gave me," she said. "Pictures, notes. Some have you in them." David opened the box. Inside were photos of him and Jonathan, smiling together, playing chess, fixing the garden. "I didn't know he kept these," David said. "I think he loved you a lot," Sarah whispered. "He just didn't show it the same way." David nodded. "Maybe. He didn't want to start a fight." "I was wrong, David." 6 months passed. The Hill family's mansion had changed. It no longer felt cold. It no longer felt like a place of silence and shadows. Now there was life. The sound of laughter returned to the halls. Staff who once walked quietly now greeted David with warm smiles. The garden was full of fresh flowers again, just like when Jonathan Hill used to care for them. And in the center of it all was David. David had grown into his role. He was now the head of the Hill Company. But he didn't sit behind a desk all day. He walked the factory floors, talked to workers, and listened to their problems. He helped fix broken systems and gave raises to those who were ignored. People respected him, not because of his title, but because of his heart. Even the company profits began to rise. "He's not just a good boss," one worker said. "He's a good man." Emily often visited the mansion. She helped David organize charity events and gave speeches about adoption, kindness, and truth. Her friendship with David grew stronger each day. One day she said, "You know, you've changed how I see family." David smiled. "Me too." Charles also stayed close. He worked beside David and often thanked him for trusting him. "I was blind before," Charles admitted, "but now I see clearly. You're not just our brother, you're the best of us." Even Sarah became a bridge of peace. She helped reconnect with old friends, invited neighbors to visit the mansion, and even brought children from the local orphanage to play in the gardens. David played with the kids and told them stories. One little boy asked, "Were you adopted too?" David nodded. "Yes, and I used to feel like I didn't belong. But now, I know family is not just about blood, it's about love." But not everyone came back. Tom and Clara stayed away. They lived in a smaller house now, away from the spotlight. Clara often blamed David for everything, but Tom, he had changed. One evening, he stood outside the mansion gates. Looking in from a distance, he saw the lights, the happy faces, the warmth. He whispered to himself, "Maybe I was wrong," but he didn't go in. Not yet. Inside, David was writing a letter. It was to Jonathan. "Dear Dad, you gave me your name, your trust, and your love. Even when others didn't. I didn't fight for the money. I fought for the truth. And because of that, your dream lives on. Thank you for believing in me. Your son, always, David Hill." He folded the letter and placed it inside a small box. Then he walked to the garden and buried it under his father's favorite tree. "Goodbye, Dad," he whispered. "I'll carry your legacy with love." A week later, David hosted a big dinner at the mansion. The dining room, once full of tension, now glowed with joy. Old family friends came. Staff sat at the same table as the owners. Orphans sat next to company leaders. No one was left out. Emily raised her glass. To David, she said, "Who showed us that family is not about who you're born to, but who stands by you?" Everyone clapped. David stood up. "I was once the forgotten one," he said, "the quiet one in the back of the room. But today, I am not standing here because I fought back with anger. I'm here because I held on to love, even when I received none. That's what saved me. That's what changed everything." He looked at every face around the table. "I hope this house will always have open doors. For those who are lost, for those who are hurt, and for those who are searching for family." There were tears in many eyes, smiles everywhere. Later, that night, David stood outside, looking at the stars. Emily joined him. "Do you ever wish things had gone differently?" she asked. David thought for a moment. "No," he said, "because all of this made me who I am today. It led me to the truth. It showed me what love really means." She smiled. "You're not the forgotten brother anymore." He smiled back. "No, I'm the one who remembered what family should be."